In this module, we would like to discuss more theory to apply differential calculus to a wide range of applications. To begin with, we will revisit the notion of extrema of a function. By extrema, we mean either maximum or minima. Let us begin with an example. Suppose I am releasing a hydrogen balloon and observing the altitude or the height it attained in some interval of time. So I can just plot it into a graph by taking the x-axis as the time axis. Maybe from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock I can write. I can plot the corresponding altitudes in the y-axis. Maybe in feet I can write. So corresponding function can be plotted. So let me just start with that function and study the behavior of this extrema for the time being. So let the function may look like this. This represents my hydrogen balloon trajectory plotted as a graph. If you are analyzing the graph of the function, I am considering the input in a bounded interval, closed bounded interval, 1, 6, a equals 1 and 2 up to d equals 6. So this throughout this interval, the AD or 1, 6, if I am looking at the nature of the function, at c equals 4, it is the minimum height that is going to take place, and at d equals 6, maybe at the 6 o'clock, I am getting the maximum height for the function. This is through the entire global journey. So in the whole input AD, my function f, I will say that it has an absolute maximum at d. And the value correspondingly, here it is 15, correspondingly, that is about here. I will say that it is the maximum value of f in that domain or on that domain. Very similarly, I can talk about absolute minimum too. According to this graph, at C, I am going to get the absolute minimum because my f of x value is going to be greater than or equal to f of c for any general x in the whole domain. And the corresponding value, we will call that the minimum value of f on d. In fact, the absolute maximum and absolute minimum values of f on the entire domain are called the extreme values, or I will call that they are the extrema. This is the formal definition for extreme. So absolute maximum means you look at the inputs f of x in general. If you are able to say that f of x is less than or equal to f of c for the entire playing of x inside the domain, then you can say that absolute maximum is attained at c, which means you are saying that f has an absolute maximum at c. Corresponding value, we will call that maximum value. Very similar way you can define the absolute minimum too. In that case, f of x should be greater than or equal to f of c for every x in the domain. Corresponding value is the minimum value of f on d. This is how one can formally define extrema of function. That's the global thing. Throughout the domain, what happens it says, minimum as well as maximum. But look at our function again. The graph of the function says a little bit more. See, at c, according to this graph, at c we are having the minimum, as well as at d we are going to get the maximum for this function. But look at the behavior of the function at b also. So at b, you have a peak for the function here. The graph is like that. So you have a maximum, but not the entire journey of a to d, but in a local behavior. How to say it, express it very nicely. Look at b and see, look, we are going to get a neighborhood of b. Neighborhood means some open interval of b now. If you are working in this open interval, what can you say about the functional values? See, then corresponding to b, I am having b f of b here. So that value, f of b is going to be the maximum. In that interval, you are getting an interval. So inside the interval, if you are playing with x's, my f of x values are obviously going to be less than or equal to f value at b. But I can't say that x can be taken anywhere from the entire domain, but locally. So in a small neighborhood, which I will call that an open bounded interval. If I am looking inside, then I am getting the appropriate condition f of x is less than or equal to f of b. So locally it happens, and we will call that it's a relative maximum or local maximum. That is how I will call that. Very similarly, one can think about local minima also. So this concept is relative as well as local, not global. So formal definitions can be given like this. Local maxima or maximum at C, it means f of C should be greater than or equal to f of x, but only in at least in an open interval containing that point. Very similarly, the relative local minimum too. These notions, global as well as local, will be helpful for us. And once again, we can look at a graph of a function and how these extremas are connected with calculus, I mean differential calculus especially. That we are trying to look at now. Consider another example. I'm just looking at a graph. See, okay, before going further, I will just look at some examples, very familiar examples, to master whole ideas about that. See, we are equipped with, we are given with 4 functions, f, g, h, and k. First function, y equals x square. So y equals x square, look at the graph. It is defined the entire real line. And obviously, f is going to have a minimum at 0. So it's taking an extremum. Why is it so? See, f is having a minimum value at 0 means, see, you look at f of 0, that is going to be less than, it's actually going to be 0 here, going to be less than or equal to f of x. F of x is x square for every x in the x playing inside R. So you are getting a minimum. In fact, it is the global minimum. So it is an extrema. But you can't search for maxima. Why it's not having any maxima? The function is not bounded above. It's not sealed from up. So you can't expect a maximum here. What about the second graph? Second graph, what happened is the graph is toppled down. That is y equals minus x square. So what you are going to have now is, instead of the other phenomena, here you are getting maximum value at 0. Obviously, you are getting f of 0 is going to be the peak, is going to be greater than or equal to f of x for every x in R. On the other hand, the function g, I am calling it as minus x square, it is not going to have a minimum value, as the g is not bounded below. It is not sealed from the downside. Look at the other two, the last two examples, h and k. What about h? H, if you are looking at the function y equals, not y actually given as h of x equals 1 by x if you are looking at. This function is neither bounded above nor bounded below. You can't seal it from up or down. So obviously it is not going to have either this maxima or minima. So you are not going to have no extremas here. No absolute extremas are going to happen here. What about the last one? But remember that in C, the function h has a discontinuity at 0 also. See, see, you look at the right hand side of the graph, as x is going increasing, for example, the height of the function is decreasing towards 0 but never takes 0, never crosses x-axis. Remember that. Last function is also like that. That function is actually bounded above as well as bounded below, right? Function won't take beyond 1, the value y equals 1. Similarly, it won't take lower than y equals minus 1. But even though it is bounded, it's a bounded function. We call that it's a bounded function. it is not going to have any extrema, because see, whenever you are going larger and larger x values, whenever on the right hand side, especially on the 0, you are clinging towards it closer and closer to 1, the value 1, but it never takes the value. That is not going to be attained. So you won't get a C, a real number C, such that k of C exactly equal to 1. That is the problem. Very similar way, it has no minimum value also. So these notions will help us to understand the behavior, or the what exactly is the notion of extrema. Before further theory, let us look at one more example, which is f of x and g of x, same function x square, but in the first case it is in the open bounded interval -1 and 2, both are excluded. G is the same function x square, but now the domain is including -1 and 2. So in these situations, if you are analyzing the extrema, you should be careful. See, in the first function we are calling f of x equals x square, but the interval is open interval -1 2. So -1 is not in the domain, 2 is also not in the domain. Obviously 0 is in the domain, so it has a minimum value at 0. That also can be observed for f, but it is not going to have a maximum value. See, graph is looking bounded, fine, but see, at 2, actually 2 is not in the input, so a hole is appearing here. F of x is increasing as you are nearing towards 2, but it never takes the value or attains the value 4. If it takes the value 4, you can say that it has a maximum, but so f does not have a maximum. On the other hand, if you are just sealing it with 2, I mean the domain is included with 2. Now look at the graph, y equals x square. Domain is, for a second function g, the domain is -1 to 2. Remember that. Now both are included. Again, 0 is a minimum for this function, but 2 is now attained, and you can say that in this case, g has a largest, it attains it, so it has a maximum at 2 also. This is how we have to master while working with examples and all to understand the extrema. Okay, now let us just go to the theoretical aspect of this. I mean, especially the geometrical as well as differential calculus side, how these are having the connections with the extremas. I may consider the following graph. It may represent some f. So this function, from the geometry, you can see that we are marked with the a, b, c, and d. All these points I am going to have relative extremas or local extrema. At A, I have a local maxima. At B, I have a local minima. Similarly, C, again I am having a local maxima. Again a local. At D, a local minima. But the behavior of these extremas at A and B, they are totally different from what happens at C and D. See, look at geometrically what happens. Whenever you are concentrating at A, there is a tangent line, unique tangent at A. That tangent line is parallel to the x-axis, and in fact each slope is going to be the derivative in that case, and it is going to be 0. Very similarly, where a dip is coming, that is about the crust, is about a dip is coming at B, whenever you are getting a relative minima, there also tangent exists and is parallel to the x-axis, and the derivative is going to be 0 here also. But look at C and D. No tangent lines are there. No tangent lines are there. You are approaching C from left and right, you are not going to get unique tangent at all. But local extremas are there. So this figure, at least it suggests something. See, whenever we have a function f which is going to possess a local extrema at a point C. So our guess is something like that. Either maybe a derivative is existing in 0. Otherwise, it does not exist. It is in fact true. That is called Fermat's theorem. So Fermat's theorem says that if f has a relative extremum at C, then either f dash at C is 0 or f dash C does not exist. This is what it says. So let us look at the proof quickly. See, it says f has a relative extremum at C, then either f dash at C is 0 or f dash at C does not exist. We can suppose that f has a relative maximum. So this side is the if part, and then you are either this or that. So suppose f has a relative maximum, maybe at C, at the point C. Then what you have to show, it has to imply either this or that. Or that means f dash C does not exist always. So if f dash C does not exist, then it is nothing to prove because it's a vacuous thing. A relative, f is relative maximum at C, f dash C does not exist, it's okay, it's proved, nothing is there. If f dash C does not exist, that is not true, which means suppose f dash C exists, then you must show that f dash C is going to be 0. That is what you are trying to prove. So f has, our assumption is f has a relative maximum at C where f dash C exists. We are trying to look at f dash C is going to be 0. What is f dash at C? Basically f dash at C is given through limit of, whenever it exists, it is going to be the limit of f of, at C you are working, right? So f of C plus h minus f of C divided by h, allow h tends to 0. A limit should exist for this. That is what we are trying to look at. Now, for looking at this, remember f dash C exists. So it exists in an open interval, say I. So in an interval I, it exists. F dash C exists. And we are assuming that it has a relative maximum. What's the definition? Then it comes inside the interval I. If you are working with f of x, if x is inside I, then f of x should be less than or equal to our f of C. You are assuming that at C we are going to have a relative maximum. So we are getting an interval I. Inside that interval, if you are playing, f of x is less than or equal to f of C. So just go to the whatever be the limit what you want to look at for different derivative. But that derivative, whenever exists, the limit, as you have mentioned, right, a limit as well as left limit we can consider. See f of, so look at f of C. So if you are a little bit, see h, I may take it as positive, a small, sufficiently small h if I am taking it at f of C plus h if I am looking at, that f of C plus h definitely is going to be less than or equal to f of C, because f of C is going to have, at C is going to have the relative maximum. So f of C plus h is less than or equal to f of C. This says f of C plus h minus f of C is less than or equal to 0. So which again says on division by h also this will behave like that. I mean 1 by h I am multiplying, as h is positive I am taking for the time being. Now just apply the limit. So taking the right hand side limit, limit of h tends to 0 plus, if I am looking at, what happens for this? Both sides it will behave well. This will be less than or equal to the limit of this fellow 0 as h tends to 0 plus. It's a constant function now. This is 0 again. But what about the second part? The left part. That is precisely the limit of f of c plus h minus f of c by h as h tends to 0, because f dash c exists. Both right limit as well as left limit should be coincident. So this part is nothing other than that my f dash c. So it says that f dash at c is going to be less than or equal to 0. That is what this argument gives us. Now, we have taken an h which is positive side and we are looking at from the right. Right? So one can just work with h. We can pick h to be a negative thing and sufficiently close enough to c. Then what happens again? All arguments you can do it in another way. That also we will check it. So what you are having now is f dash at c is less than or equal to 0. F dash c means it's actually a real number. That real number is going to be less than or equal to 0. That only it says. Now if I am taking h or picking h to be negative and sufficiently close enough to c, I don't want to jump over I. That is what is the meaning. Then again, I can write f of c plus h again is going to be less than or equal to f at c, because of local maximum or relative maximum I am getting at c, which says that f of c plus h minus f of c is less than or equal to 0. But this now my h is negative now. So 1 by h is also negative. I'm just multiplying here and here, which I am getting is it's reversing, right? Because multiplication by a negative number, it reverses the thing, the inequality. So this will reverse. So what I'm going to get is f of c plus h minus f of c into 1 by h or by h. This is going to be greater than or equal to 0 now. Right? Again, I will be taking the limit as h tends to 0. That is basically from the 0 minus part I can look at. But that is same as f dash at c because it exists there. So this is f dash at c. So this f dash at c is going to be this, which is greater than or equal to 0 now. From this argument, you are going to conclude that f dash c is going to be greater than or equal to 0 now, if you are approaching in this way. Right? So these two conditions, f dash at c is less than 0, f dash at c is greater than or equal to 0. Simultaneously, this is to happen. It means nothing other than that this fellow should be 0. So f dash at c must be 0. And hence the proof. So Fermat's theorem has proved. There is no speciality with the relative maximum. Instead of maximum, minimum also you can do it in an analogous manner. So we have the Fermat's theorem, which says that f has a relative maximum, extremum in general at c. Either f dash at c is 0 or f dash c does not exist. So these conditions are important, the necessary conditions. F dash at c is 0 or f dash c does not exist. Then that c, we will call that the critical number. We will define it very formally now. If you are supplied with a function f, a critical number of a function f is any number c in the domain of f at which f dash of c is 0 or f dash of c does not exist. So from the idea of, or from the theorem due to Fermat, what it says, the relative extremum of a function f can occur only at a critical number of f, because Fermat's theorem says what? Fermat's theorem says that it is a relative maximum at c, then either this should be f dash at c should be 0 if it existing, otherwise it does not exist. So relative extrema occur only at the critical number of the function. That is precisely you are getting it. But don't jump into the conclusion about the converse. Converse of Fermat's theorem is not true. You cannot conclude that, see, if C is a critical number of F, then F must have a relative extremum at C. That is not true at all. That also we will just look at an example. Very nice example will be given. See, consider the familiar functions f of x equals x cubed, the cubic function, and g of x also. Both are having very nice behavior. One x raised to 1 by 3. In fact, it is some way they are inverses. So what about this graph of these functions? Immediately it gives the answer. What exactly you have to do? Just look at the graph of f of x equals x cubed. If you are looking at f of x equals x cubed and the behavior of the function at 0 you try to look at. See, f of x equals x cubed. It's a polynomial function. Derivative exists. So f dash x, if you are looking at, it is 3x square. So at 0, if you are evaluating, it is 0. So this is going to be 0. That gives you x equals 0. So it says what? So 0 is a critical point or critical number, we can say. It's a critical number of f. But what happens for the function there? It's a critical number. 0 is a critical number for the function, but it cannot have an extreme, or relative extremum at 0. Why is it so? See, if you are looking at f of x values, it is going to be less than 0, x is less than 0. So whenever you are on the left, the whole functional values are down to the x-axis, which means its f of x is negative values. But if you are looking at x positive, you are getting f of x is greater than 0. This says that it cannot have a relative extremum at 0. If it is differentiable, but no, you can conclude like that. What about the last example? G of x equal to x raised to 1 by 3. G dash actually not defined at 0, right? See, computational formula in general, G dash of x, if you are looking at, it is going to be 1 by 3 x to the power minus 2 by 3, which actually gives 1 by 3 into x to the power 2 by 3, which is not going to be defined at 0. So it's not defined. But G is defined there. G is defined like that. G dash is not defined there. But again, remember, g of x is less than 0 as x is less than 0, and g of x is greater than 0 if x is greater than 0. So g cannot have a relative extremum at 0 also. So look at the importance of all these aspects, extrema values. Thank you.